That's real good. All right, let's find out what happens. One of these two players is into our top 8. Cedric and Monty, I'll send it over to you.
Dear Maria, count me in. Let's do this thing, partner. It is time to put our first person.
Our first.
Right into the top 8 here at Pro Tour Final Fantasy. Cedric Phillips, Monty DeVuti, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to watch some Maze of Prowess because, of course, we are. It's 40% of this metagame. One player with Swiss Spears, one player without. That was one of the things that we learned on Thursday when talking to the players. Some felt, of course you play 4 of these things. It's a no-brainer. Others felt like, no. We're going to go a little bit slower, go a little bit bigger, and we're able to work through the Swiss Spears that the opponents have, and then they don't have the big effects that we do.
Right. I think Swift Spear was one of the points of debate. I think there were 3 camps really coming into the weekend. It was the Swift Spear camp, the Drake Hatcher camp, and the we don't really need either of them, just maximize on VV camps. And we're seeing how each camp has really put up a fight throughout the course of the weekend. In terms of mirror matchups, I can say both of them have played the mirror 3 times so far this weekend. Tony is 3-0 in the mirror.
Okay.
Ian Robb has lost a mirror that we saw against Shuhei Nakamura earlier, but I definitely think Ian has the advantage with those Drake Hatchers in this specific head-to-head.
Well, let's get this one underway. Ian going to kick things off with a sleight of hand via Spiral Canal. It'll be a Storm Chaser, a little otter. Let's do this thing, folks. Let's get this party started. There's towards the tower. And you see the 1-mana cards are already flying fast and furious. There's a copy of Wild Ride in Ian's hand. Works very well alongside Vivi. And now a copy of Into the Flood Maw here in Tony's hand. A good way to stop the powerful legendary wizard.
Yeah, pretty important pickup for Tony, considering the makeup of Ian's hand is going to result in Ian feeling like he doesn't have a choice, even if he wanted to, in running out Vivi next turn. And if Tony had no answer to that, that would have been wildly problematic. But as things stand, picking up that Into the Flood Maw means that now Tony can feel safe setting up and having the Quarry Steel Cutter into something next turn, including this Into the Flood Maw or End Step.
And there's a stock up, so take a look at the top 5. 2 coming here with Ian Robb. It's the 2 spells, and the lands are going to go to the bottom very, very quickly. And Ian's going to pass the turn back very quickly over to Tony.
Yeah, opt into stock up. Pretty clutch there. Means that Ian doesn't have to just run out Vivi. Can save it for the next turn, where he can have a pretty explosive turn if he wants to. Risk going Vivi into Wild Ride. Not a risk, of course, if your opponent has put the shields down, as Tony may. So we'll see how that plays out for Ian, because that would just be a very difficult turn to fight through.
It'll be a Quarry Steel Cutter and a Monk alongside it, thanks to the opt. And we'll head back over Ian's way, who does have an island, and there's Vivi. Follow up here is going to be a sleight of hand trigger there. So Vivi is moving and grooving.
Now, the unfortunate part here for Ian, as I do believe he has played his land this turn.
That is correct.
He can't go Wild Ride unless he uses the VV for mana here. And that means the extra buff that he would be giving to use for mana isn't available this specific turn. It's just, you know, just a lot of damage coming out across.
So hit 2 Vivi pings.
Yeah.
Now pass.
13, 18, right?
Well, players make sure they got those light totals correct. It was 13-18 as they play for a top 8 at this Pro Tour here in Las Vegas. Take a look at Tony's hand here. A lot of 1-mana spells. Storm Chaser's Talent, Monstrous Rage, Torch the Tower, Wild Ride, Into the Flood Maw. How to use those 1-mana spells? That's going to be the name of the game here, because Vivi is on the battlefield and it is a very scary card.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to get rid of Vivi before your opponent has a chance to use the mana reasonably again. So whether that is on your turn or during your opponent's upkeep, for example, just to make sure. With access to 4 1-mana spells, Tony does actually have the option to try to go for the kill here if he wants. Has access to Storm Chaser's Talent into a Wild Ride, giving the new token haste, going through it that way. And that's why you do see the dice as he's doing the math right now between the prowess of both tokens, the Quarry Steel Cutter and the token that makes. I'm not doing the exact math right now, but I think there is a reasonable chance Tony can just kill Ian here.
Well, stranger things have happened.
Which would be pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's what Tony's thinking about as Ian takes a sip. Might be shuffling up here for game number 2 in just a moment. So if we start things off with the Storm Chaser's talent, turn that next one into a Wild Ride on the Otter token. A couple of prowess triggers, and don't forget that, of course, as you mentioned, the Corey Steel Cutter there. So that's what the dice are for.
Yeah, you see 4-3-2 because Toni is essentially saying the first prowess creature is going to have this many buffs. The second that's going to come into play is going to have 3. The next one is going to have 2. And just doing the math, because you need to be especially certain here that you are presenting lethal.
Well, here's Storm Chaser's talent. There's your first trigger for prowess on the Monk token, and now the Otter's on the battlefield. Okay. Next up.
Wild Ride.
I think that's where we're going. That's where we are going. So there's Wild Ride. So now prowess trigger, 2 on that Monk. Corey Steel Cutter is going to bring a Monk along with it. Remember, the Monk that's on the Corey Steel Cutter does not have any prowess triggers just yet. And now that Otter has Wild Ride Resolve on it, along with a prowess trigger. So now next up is Monstrous Rage. And that's going to go on to the Monk that already has a prowess trigger. So now it has 3 prowess triggers. That one has a second one on the Otter, and this Monk on the Corey Steel Cutter has a first one. And now little Flood Maw, bounce your VV. I think you're dead. Yeah, I think you're dead. I like a good guessing game at this stage of the tournament. I promise it's a lot. 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's at least 14. It's at least 14. And you know what? I think you got me, and I agree. So on to game number 2. That's where we're going to be, as Toni is 1 win away from making a top 8 here in Las Vegas. Though, for Toni, it's going to be a 5-card hand compared to Ian's 6.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you have to be prepared for the prowess mirror coming into a tournament like this. Ian's already won it 3 times, and you can definitely see the experience of that situation where that turn started with Toni going, "Can I kill you?" That's where we're starting off.
Yeah.
And it did not take long for him to figure out that the answer is yes.
There is a Drake Hatcher for Ian Robb. Well, Toni started things off with, once again, Storm Chaser's talent. And the follow-up now looks to be a Swift Spear, and it is. I'm just going to pass the turn back. We head back Ian's way. Remember, Ian making top 8 at Pro Tour Ether Drift just a couple of months ago in Chicago. So this stage is becoming somewhat familiar for the youngster. And Corey Steel Cutter is going to get Spell Pierced. And now there is a Storm Chaser's talent and a prowess trigger on the Hatcher. Otter coming.
Yep.
Attack for 3.
Here's an attack for 3. It's a 2-2 and a 2-3 on defense from the Spell Pierce here for Toni. The Swift Spear, of course, is the 2-3. The Otter is a 2-2. And there is a 2-4 coming into the red zone.
3-5.
3-5, is it?
Yes.
Oh, Steel Cutter and Storm Chasers.
Right.
Thank you.
And that's the big issue here, because for Toni, taking the damage means that you're giving Ian a Drake,
Yes.
more or less, right? But if you block, you're not blocking profitably, you're not blocking to trade a creature. So it's essentially a chump block asking, do you want to turn one of your prowess creatures into your opponent not having a Drake?
Sure.
And that's not the answer for Toni there.
So let's head back Ian's way, who now has a Drake on the battlefield, and 1-1 Otter, and then the 1-3 Drake Hatcher. This will be a sleight of hand to start the turn. A couple prowess triggers. Looks like that's going to resolve. So take a look at the top couple of cards. Looks like Wild Ride's headed to the bottom, Spell Pierce into the hand.
Yeah, having a piece of interaction here in the Spell Pierce, when you already know that Toni is struggling on resources, having mulligan to 5 this game, means that now you feel a lot more safe going into what the turn could be here.
So 2-4 and a 2-2 are attacking. It looks like Swift Spear and the Otter token are maybe considering a little bit of a gang block. But first, it looks like it might be an opt before blocks.
I think this is going to be opt. The other card from Toni, of course, as we do have access to the player's hands, is, I believe, an Into the Flood Maw.
It is indeed.
So starting things off with opt, gets to double block the Drake Hatcher, put the onus on Ian for what he has to do to act here. And if not, he loses the Drake Hatcher and Toni doesn't have to take any additional actions.
So just the damage in the air, and now back up Drake Hatcher. We're going to head back Toni's way.
How many cards?
2 cards.
Yeah, shield down for Spell Pierce right now means that Toni does have an opportunity to resolve stock up next turn. The question is, does he want to fire off this into the Floodmaw on the end step? Because otherwise, to leave that up, he would be forced to take a land off of stock up if he doesn't draw one.
Yep.
And by firing this off on the end step, even though it is a bit more awkward in terms of timing, it is an opportunity for you to have more flexibility in terms of the cards that you can take.
Oh, into the Floodmaw is the decision.
15 and 20.
Toni doesn't look thrilled with the idea of having to cast this right now.
Yeah, there's also the question of whether you're bouncing the Drake or the Drake Hatcher. The Drake, of course, is a permanent answer, but the Drake Hatcher is the more threatening of the two creatures. And when your plan for your next turn is to essentially tap out for the stock up, it's really a thought process of how much damage can my opponent do with this Drake Hatcher if my shields are down for one turn.
Well, it looks like Toni's not going to play that into the Floodmaw. Drew a copy of Roaring Furnace. Roar.
Yep.
See, because it roars.
Yeah,
You
no,
get it.
I got it.
I'll draw for turn.
And there is the Roaring Furnace. Two mana. When you unlock this door, the room deals damage equal to the number of cards in your hand to target creature an opponent controls. Here come the prowess creatures.
Yeah, of course, you would really like to have killed that Drake Hatcher in that spot.
Oof. There's Spell Pierce. It's into the Floodmaw. Spell Pierce there. Yeah, this is a very favorable exchange.
Here.
Yeah, that's a very favorable exchange there for Ian Robb.
So 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 4 counters. Or sorry, no, 1 less.
So this is a 3,
2, 3.
and yours.
We're going to do the Monstrous
also
Rage math alongside prowess here in just a moment. We'll let the players do it for us.
So you take 3, surprise 6. Go 9, I'll get 3 counters. 9. Yep, that's good.
Ian says sounds good. I'd feel good about it too.
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very good exchange. Now here's stock up, and this is the worst time to cast stock up. It's when you're behind, you've got nothing on the board, and you're trying to catch back up. That's where it gets a little tough. And now you saw Vivi among those cards. That's a little slow in a stage like this as well.
Yeah, definitely. And with that last card in hand being a Monastery Swift Spear, Toni is already in a position where you're not really doing much, may just be forced to pick an untapped blue source plus into the Floodmaw here in order to be able to represent some interaction for the Drake Hatcher, because you're really not doing much
All untap?
else.
Yep.
There's a Drake on the end step. Ian's ready to untap, and Ian would love to play stock up in a position like this where he's very far ahead. It's triggering prowess on an aggressive draw and continue to cement his advantage with the cards that he wants to select here. Looks like Steel Cutter among the cards alongside an Abrade as well.
Combat, attack with alt for...
This will be an end of the Floodmaw on the
So you take
Drake
4.
Hatcher. 4
5.
damage is going to be dealt because of prowess
Yep.
triggers. Tony's going to fall down to 5. We'll see if there's something Toni can draw to get out of a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I think Island was the draw, which means it's going to be Storm Chaser's talent going up to just rebuy and into the Floodmaw.
And just pass that turn back, so we are going to head back over to Ian Robb.
Yeah, untap land is perfect. It lets you go Corey Steel Cutter into a Drake Hatcher, or if you want to just leave up an Abrade, that is a choice as well, though no reason for you to really do that.
Yep, there's into the Floodmaw on the Otter token. Yeah, but this is going to be more than enough for Ian Robb to get the job all done. So, game 3. Winner into the top 8 here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and reminder, that game was a mulligan to 5 for Toni, a mulligan to 6 for Ian. So with both players keeping 7 cards in hand, this is exactly how we would like it. One game to decide who goes into the top 8, and both players playing at full power is the ideal place to be.
And there is the Lithomantic Barrage to take care of. That Otter token. This will be a Spire Bluff Canal, and now it'll be a sleight of hand here for Toni. So top couple of cards, a room is amongst them. That looks like that was the selection. So sleight of hand is done resolving. Next up, is there a threat here? It looks like the answer is no. Just going to pass the turn back. So we head back over to Ian. There's Corey Steel Cutter. Be a good time to have a Spell Pierce. So the answer is that's fine. Up now for Toni. Tony's hand right now is very reactive and is kind of looking for things, not a proactive approach on the draw, or excuse me, on the play here, partner.
Yeah, looking for a threat, whether that threat is VV or a Corey Steelcutter of his own. Of course, having an answer to the Corey Steelcutter in play would also be nice if he is able to find a copy of something like an Abrade, which he does have one copy of in the sideboard. That would be pretty nice, but as things stand, going to have to continue playing this reactive game plan.
Thundering falls to the land for the turn, enters the battlefield tapped. The Surveil put a Shivan Reef into the graveyard, and that was Tony's turn. For now, he's going to start things off with a sleight of hand. You have to imagine the second spell is coming here in a moment, and it is. It's going to cost Ian a life, but I think that's totally fine with the Is It Prowess player.
Yeah, importantly, he did find his third land, so VV is now online, and with the fourth land, VV can really put pressure on the next turn. Tony does have access to an Into the Floodmaw if he wants to prevent taking any damage here. One thing that we've seen players highly prioritize in this matchup is not taking damage when they can prevent it, especially from these prowess creatures.
Looks like it'll be another copy of Opt here in just a moment from Tony, so top card. Where's that headed? That's going to stay on top. Now it's time to draw a card for the turn. There is a Corey Steelcutter. This is a sleight of hand.
1 second. The sleight of hand. So this resolves, but the sleight of hand in the stack. It's going to torch them.
Going to torch the token now. Will Ian, and now sleight of hand will resolve. So 1 and a 2 opt among them.
Yeah, I think Tony was really looking for an untapped land there in order to be able to leave up some form of interaction. And Torch the Tower would be ideal, but even Spell Pierce would be okay in this spot. But as things stand, going to have to just take a spell. I think that you have to go for the stock up here just because it does give you more cards. Of course, there is an argument for the cheaper spell, but I think in a spot like this, you want to make sure that you never run out of gas.
Man, this is bad news here for Tony because this is where the 3-mana spells are going to come in and really have a huge impact. It's VV into Monstrous Rage, make a token off the Corey Steelcutter. It's a 4-power VV. Well, you know what? Why am I talking? I'll just let Ian do it. You think it's time for a stock up, partner?
I think this is the position where you want to fire off the stock up. Your opponent's tapped out, you're not worried about a Spell Pierce or anything, and getting the second Corey Steelcutter down is tempting. I think one of the decisions here wasn't whether you're casting stock up or because you have to decide all the mana you're making from VV at once, are you leaving up a blue mana or a red mana for after this?
Sure.
Talent, trigger, sure.
We made 4 blue with Vivi, and it was pretty ideal that he did because that last mana that was left over was for a Storm Chaser's talent. Now there's Nodder on the battlefield. And this is what we kind of talk about in this matchup, where if you fall behind like this, it's very hard to come back. We have seen over the course of this weekend that the Is It Prowess deck does not do particularly well when it falls behind or when it's blocking. It loves to, of course, play from ahead. Monastery Swift Spear builds certainly do accentuate that of just, I want to be ahead all of the time. And right now for Tony, it's just not the case.
Yeah, this is the downside now we see of picking that stock up the previous turn. It was a question of how bad could this turn really go for me?
7, right? Yes, so I have 3 more. Yep.
There's Torch the Tower.
Yep.
All right, well, the VV problem is solved, but the other stuff, well, there's some work to do there.
Yeah.
Tap.
Yeah, the problem is we know that there's another Corey Steelcutter in hand as well as a Torch the Tower to clear off the way and trigger this Corey Steelcutter, and I think this is going to be all she wrote.
Yeah, here's a sleight of hand. Trigger, Monk, 1, 2. Very quickly selecting a card. Next up.
I'll take 1 to go to 18.
Down to 18 goes Ian.
Getcha.
There's Into the Floodmaw. Prowess triggers, there's a lot of them.
What are you at?
We'll do the math together. But Ian Robb has done the job, and it's back-to-back Pro Tour top 8s. for Ian Robb, top 8 in Chicago just a couple of months ago. Had to grind it out in those last final rounds and some favorable tiebreakers. This time, first one in here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, from 8th to 1st has to be a great feeling, especially considering you are playing a deck like this in a field of is it prowess. I expect we're going to see a few more prowess decks in the top 8 at a minimum, and having to play against all of them is going to be a great feeling for Ian.
Yeah, being on the top of the leaderboard right now, first player into the top 8. You mentioned once we get into that Sunday stage and play draw, which we saw in that matchup is a big deal. To say that you're going to be on the play quite a bit, that's a really, really good feeling. So it's making the top 8 of a Pro Tour. Ian, congratulations to you. We're taking a short break here from Las Vegas. When we do come back, Ken Yukuhiro on Mono Red, Anthony Lee on Omniscience. More fun right after this. Welcome, welcome. Whoo! Look at all these people here at Pro Tour Final Fantasy and more importantly, Magic Con Las Vegas. 19,000 plus of our closest friends enjoying Magic's newest set and the largest Magic Con of all time. Can we beat that record in Atlanta? Who knows? That'd be really cool if we could. But for right now, we are enjoying our time here in Sin City. And who's going to join Ian Robb into the top 8 here in Pro Tour Final Fantasy? We're going to find out soon enough because one of these two players that we're about to watch has the opportunity to get there. Cedric Phillips, Monty DeVuti, about to watch Ken Yukuhiro on Mono Red. Mage Bane Lizard, last time we saw Ken getting the job done.
Yeah.
How's that card play here?
Less good. Fan favorite. Ken Yukuhiro.
Indeed.
Anthony Lee, super lovable guy. Both of these guys are just awesome ambassadors of the game, and it's a bit of a tough matchup for Ken. He's facing Temporary Lockdown, 4X in the main deck. Can be a bit of a problem to get past. And Anthony's deck isn't a control deck. He's not just buying time. He has this Omniscience combo. So he's putting Ken on a clock after surviving. And Ken really hoping to get the job done in game 1, but that's not how things played out.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a bad news, good news situation if you're rooting for Ken. Bad news, lost game 1. The good news, game 2 on the play. That's where Mono Red wants to be, though no 1-drop here for Ken. So even worse news. And no 2-drop either. Oh no, Ken. But Ken did, it looks like, kept 7. Is that true?
Yeah, I see 3 copies of Screaming Nemesis in his hand.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of the keep has gone.
All right, haste in your face.
And look, this is good news, bad news as well. Yes, you didn't have a 1-drop or a 2-drop, but Screaming Nemesis is a hard-to-answer card for the Omniscience deck because it dodges temporary lockdown. That is one of their main forms of removal that they rely on. So Ken having 3 copies of Screaming Nemesis means that this game could be pretty bad for Anthony if he's not able to quickly assemble his combo. Yes, he's not under that much pressure right now, but there's a lot of pressure that he's going to have a hard time answering.
Oh, look, I do agree things can change very quickly, but also there's that card.
Yeah.
That's the one I think I was a little bit scared of. They're in, is that the dispersal?
As far as dispersal.
Dispersal, yes. As far as dispersal, saying, oh, well, that was nice. Nice try there, Screaming Nemesis. But you'll have to come back a little bit later.
When you have the time, when you're not under that much pressure because Ken didn't go 1-drop, 2-drop Screaming Nemesis, this dispersal is that much more backbreaking.
Now, it is still going to be a Screaming Nemesis-based game plan here. That much is to be sure, as I'm no boy.
Part 1
is already into the graveyard.
Yeah. It wasn't before, it is now.
Whew. Okay. Looks like a little bit of graveyard hate here, perhaps?
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that should be a copy of Soul Guide Lantern coming out from Ken's side.
Okay. Okay, that does make some sense. That is a good hate card against these Omniscient strategies, so able to pick off the first one that's into the graveyard. And maybe that buys enough time against Lee.
Yeah, he had it in hand for a while now. He didn't want to play it and just waste that enters ability, because if you can get one Omniscience with it and keep this in play for the next Omniscience that goes, you're getting double the value from your one card. And he knows that Anthony's not casting a Boiler's Awakening until turn 4. So up to this point, Ken had the luxury of just holding that Soul Guide Lantern, and that gave him maximum value.
Sure. Well, here's another template of Screaming Nemesis. No More Lies is going to take care of that. That one's exiled, but there is still one Screaming Nemesis on the battlefield, at least for now.
I think that may actually be a Tursa Light Shatter.
Excuse me, thank you.
Another 3-drop that Ken's deck plays, only as a one-of, but that is one that he picked up the previous turn.
Looks like that damage is going to get through. And now what? Okay.
That's a Soul Partition coming out from Anthony, getting rid of the Tesa, at least temporarily.
So the name of the game here for Anthony is buy time, right?
Yeah.
Keep your life total high. Heck, maybe even this Overlord enters the battlefield and is meaningful.
We're only a turn away right now. The Overlord hitting the battlefield, or, you know, is on the battlefield, but the impending of it running out, so it is a creature, would be pretty meaningful. Ken's hand does have access to a Devout Decree, I believe. So some removal, as well as another copy of a Forest Dispersal, means that he has all the time he needs at the moment. 2 lands probably happy to hit the graveyard here.
Boy, this has to be getting frustrating here if you are Ken. You keep this hand with all haste creatures and, you know, some copies of Monstrous Rage. You know, the idea is that I'll be able to start getting through some damage. Won't be the fastest clock we've ever seen, given the mice package that's in this deck. But it's got to be pretty good on the play, and Anthony has swatted this away time and time again.
Yeah, Anthony has access to a copy of a Boiler's Awakening in hand, in addition to a temporary lockdown. I wouldn't hate seeing him just run out the temporary lockdown just to deal with this Ghost Vacuum. Excuse me, with this Soul Guide Lantern. Yeah. That is the one. But as things stand, just opting to stay back.
And again. Hiya! All right, Screaming Nemesis. Wait for it. Okay, it's finally going to deal some damage. Well, maybe it's going to deal a little bit more damage than we realize. Here's a copy of Monstrous Rage.
Yeah, and this is the big issue, is Devout Decree is a sorcery.
Yeah.
So at the moment, Anthony has nothing to prevent the Screaming Nemesis from hitting him.
So Anthony's down to 10.
Notably, there is a copy of, I believe, Burst Lightning in Ken's hand.
That's true.
So he has access to that as a very expensive removal spell if he wants, but he could also use it here on his Screaming Nemesis if he wanted to deal some damage to Anthony and prevent him from gaining life for the rest of the game. Opts not to.
Yes, yes indeed. So Devout Decree is going to take care of the Screaming Nemesis for good. Could we actually see Omniscience just do some attacking here to get the job done? That's
I think
out
it
of
is very possible.
Yeah, I don't think, given how this game has shaken out, I don't think that's out of the question. It's not a thing that we see often. And there's a discard of the Abuela's Awakening. So, Overlord of the Flood Pits? Is that you? Are you the one to get this job done?
Yeah, there's another copy in Anthony's hand, though I do think that's going to be impended again because Anthony has a copy of Change the Equation in hand now. So suddenly he has instant speed interaction again. He has a way to protect this Overlord of the Flood Pits. And it can go for something like a kicked Burst Lightning the next turn. Anthony does have an answer to that. The only thing he really has to be concerned with right now is that copy of Soulstone Sanctuary that is sitting in Ken's land slot. That can turn into a creature and represent a threat alongside that monstrous rage that is in Ken's hand, and that's the big risk of putting the shields down to just cast this Overlord for full cost.
Oh, there's the Overlord of Flood Pits.
Can I see this?
And it is on impending right now, so Lee will draw 2 and discard a singular card. As you saw, Yukuhiro want to take a quick look at Soul Partition as we head back over Yukuhiro's way. Life totals 15 to 10. Okay. I come in with a land, bring Lee down to 7 and pass. So we're going to head back over to Anthony Lee, who's got a whole bunch of mana to work with. Card selection has been fairly good given the Overlords.
Yeah, Anthony just asking Ken to put the Soulstone Sanctuary in the creature zone, considering it is permanently a creature now.
Yep.
Just easier to visualize. I think a second copy of Temporary Lockdown is in Anthony's hand now.
Yep.
Bit awkward considering it doesn't deal with that Soulstone Sanctuary. So that threat is getting through here.
Might be time for me to discard one of those, perhaps. Looks like Omniscience was picked up among other cards in hand here for Anthony after the Overlord did attack. So there will be a discard here in just a second.
Yeah, and I don't think Anthony's hand is offering him much help here.
I mean, Change the Equation is really the only card that matters right now.
Right. If he had gone for example, the Temporary Lockdown before the attack, getting rid of the Soulstone Lantern one way or another, Soul Guide Lantern, excuse me, one way or the other, and then he could discard an Omniscience into a Abuela's Awakening here, well, then we might be talking about something. But at the moment, he's just looking at a hand that doesn't really do much in the situation, and that is a big problem against this Soulstone Sanctuary that he can't answer last time we saw.
Oh, here comes some mana. There's a temp lockdown. Remember, it's exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until the powerful white enchantment leaves the battlefield.
I think Ken just has this. I think regardless of what he does in the spot, and just doesn't even need to exile the graveyard if he so chooses, because if Anthony just goes for getting Omniscience back, I don't think he can actually do anything with it in this position.
Oh, here's Meticulous Archive. Surveil No More Lies into the graveyard. Okay. Down to 2. Pass it over to you. Okay. 2 mana.
2 Hired Claws.
Arr.
Going to attack with the Lizard.
Looks like
Okay,
it's
no,
gonna be an
Emberheart Challenger instead.
Remember to change the equation that's in hand right now. That's really the only card of consequence here for Anthony Lee.
Yeah, and I think Anthony may feel forced to use it here, and that means Ken can go Hired Claw, Monstrous Rage, and even if he doesn't deploy all of it, even if he just deploys one of it, that is going to be lethal. He has to be thinking, is there another copy of Ifar's Dispersal here, which I think is the reason to go for both Hired Claws rather than just one and rely on the Monstrous Rage, is that should be enough to win with Burst Lightning.
Old Hired Claw. Whenever you attack with one or more lizards, Hired Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. And that text comes up maybe a little more than we realize.
Yes, also in Sanctuary, not just a mouse, also a lizard. So
right.
really taking advantage of every card type that your deck has.
Ken, in a spot like this, doesn't want to... Okay. Looks like it's going to be a Monstrous Rage.
And then, after a Forest Dispersal isn't there.
Well, I guess the interesting question is when do you cast the Burst Lightning? But I got that question answered, and it's
Yeah.
right now. So, a weird one that game was. No Hardfire Hero, no 2-drop. Screaming Nemesis, the first play of the game. A really slow start, but that Soul Guide Lantern was timely that Ken held on to. Made it so that Omniscience couldn't sneak onto the battlefield and ultimately able to win a bit of a strange one here against Omniscience. So, game 3, it's the place to be. Winner of this one, well, if you're Ken, you're into the top 8. If you're Anthony, you're darn close. So this one is worth a lot, folks. Here comes Hired Claw.
Yeah, and this is really cool. Ken does have a 1-drop this time, but again, you don't want to overcommit into a temporary lockdown from your opponent. So rather than adding another cheap creature to the board, which he does have in hand, he just says, I'm going to put a counter on this Hired Claw, and you have to deal with this one before I do anything else.
So that is step 1. He's just going to pass the turn back. So there's a Magebane Lizard.
You know, I wouldn't expect anything less of a player from a player of Ken's caliber, but the way that he has played around temporary lockdown in this match, whether it's with his keeps, his prioritization, or his timing, has just been immaculate.
Man, I'm not too surprised at all, just like you said. This is what you would expect from a player with this number of top finishes who is on the cusp once again of making another top 8 of a Pro Tour. Here comes the follow-up. It's going to be Magebane Lizard. And now the question is if you have a temporary lockdown, is this good enough? Is this what you want to sweep up with a powerful enchantment?
Yeah, I think there's a copy of Beza in Anthony's hand, so he does have access to that as well. And the big question for him, I do think there is a copy of Temporary Lockdown, and there's also an Omniscience, is can he set up anything here?
Well, time to draw. And Anthony Lee's hand is a little bit interesting because there's a copy of, as best my eyes can see, a No More Lies, a Change the Equation, a Temporary Lockdown. You mentioned the Beza. So as far as interaction against a red strategy is concerned, like it's all kind of there.
Yeah.
It's just how do you sequence it, but also how do you expect your opponents to do some sequencing? So take one from the lockdown. Okay, these little knuckleheads, they're all cleaned up, but I imagine Ken's going to be in overdrive now. There is an Emberheart Challenger.
Literally cannot go fast enough.
Yeah, I get you. I get you, buddy. I get you. You and me, we're speaking the same language, Ken. Beatdown City, USA. Bang. That'll be 6 of them. Now Anthony Lee is all of a sudden down to 7.
Yeah, and the big thing for Anthony is he doesn't have the 4th land, at least didn't the previous turn, which meant that he wasn't able to play the Beza, and it looks like he drew Meringue River Regent for the turn. So doesn't have the 4th land here either.
Yeah.
Could fire off the Roiling Dragonstorm, try to find a land, saying if I miss on the land here anyways, I'm dead, but has access to a Devout Decree. So the question is, does he take the safe line of just killing that, or does he try to play into hitting that land there?
Well, the Devout Decree is going to resolve, and now Ken's going to very quickly untap and draw.
That's another Emberheart Challenger and another Monstrous Rage. So
yep.
that should just be game if Ken has the information we have, which is that there is no copy of A Forest Dispersal on the other side from Anthony.
There's a Magebane Lizard to start, and then a little beat down, so maybe taking a little more of a conservative approach here is Ken. And I kind of like taking a slightly conservative approach if you're thinking about just Omniscience, right? It's not in the graveyard, I don't have to worry about too much. But Omniscience isn't the only card to weigh into the equation because, as you mentioned, Beza is a thing.
Yeah, and this is a position where Anthony, I think, may feel forced to fire off the Beza here.
So here's 4 mana. And this is Beza. So it looks like a treasure's on the way.
Treasure is here.
Yeah, treasure from being down on
What are
lands.
life totals?
Does not get any tokens, but does gain the life
Yep.
from Beza.
So what's next here for Ken, who's got to be feeling pretty good about things, all things told?
Yeah, once again, has to be worried about the existence of Afar's Dispersal. But the question is, how long can you play around it,
Yeah.
considering you can't just pass here?
Monstrous Rage torched the tower. And a Soul Guide Lantern.
Doing this now, while Anthony, of course, can't cast Afar's Dispersal. So getting the information of what the card on top is, and then deciding, am I attacking here?
Ken's going to take one from the Monstrous Rage thanks to his own Magebane Lizard.
Go live?
Fall down to 19.
19, yes. Yes, you're 9, yes.
Hasn't played a land here, I believe, so can still play that mountain. And I think that might be a Lightning Strike in Ken's hand, if I'm not mistaken. Or it may just be... it's a Soul Guide
Yeah,
Lantern.
it's a Soul Guide
Okay,
Lantern
so-
alongside the Torch the Tower.
Right.
So how do you attack if you are Ken? Looks like the land is going to get played. Yeah, this is all about do I want to play around Dispersal or not, right? Like, that's the entire question.
Yeah, and it's also, can I kill my opponent?
Mm-hmm.
Can you afford to play around Dispersal? I think the answer is very quickly becoming no. Can you kill your opponent? You do have a 6-power Emberheart Challenger. You do also have the Magebane Lizard there. You could pump the Prowess and then still use Torch the Tower here to deal more trample damage if you want.
Yeah, because right now I think we're looking at a 7-5 Emberheart Challenger.
Correct.
Bang. Come on in. So easy for us to say there's no Dispersal. Ken, get in there.
Size?
Yeah.
7, 5?
7-5.
1, 2. Okay.
That's all it is, just a 7-5.
Just 7. It's nothing. Barely any damage.
Yeah. Well, Base is thinking about it. I think Anthony knows too. You know, trample's going to happen regardless, but
You can't afford to just take it because
7's a ton.
yeah, and there's a Magebane Lizard on
Yep.
the battlefield. You're going to need to cast some spells to get out of this.
Yeah, so this now, yep, and Ken just stopped him because this is an opportunity to cast Torch the Tower. And Torch the Tower is a way to deal additional trample damage. Now, again, 7-power creature. Base's toughness is
5.
5, so 7 minus 5 is 2. That's how much trample damage will be taking place right now. If you Torch the Tower, you do it for the full amount ski. Then you're able to deal 3 more damage on top. And so that means you can get 5 damage through right now.
Yeah, Torch the Tower would be a way to add essentially 3 damage.
Yep. Call it a lightning bolt.
Sure.
Right?
You get the prowess, you get 2 more damage through.
Mm-hmm.
You could bargain it.
Actually, technically better than a lightning bolt then, right?
Well, the issue is if you bargain it, you have to sack. I believe the only thing he can sack is the roll, which would lose him a power.
Lantern?
Okay.
Second outfit? Am I
Yeah.
crazy?
No,
Yeah.
that is correct. Yeah, I don't think you're affording to sack Lantern here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, different conversation. but-
you don't want to lose the game on
Look,
the spot.
ultimately, the Torch of Tower is going to allow more damage to get through, and now Anthony Lee is down to 4. So, Anthony Lee has a very reactive hand and counter spells like Change the Equation and No More Lies, and doesn't have a way to really answer what's going on the board. Let's see if we can find one. That's an island. That's a whammy. And of course, if there's needs to be something cast like a Roiling Dragonstorm, that's a little ping.
Yeah, I think the existence of the Soul Guide Lantern on the battlefield means that Anthony doesn't really have any clean outs in this situation. I would guess that this turn needs to start with Overlord of the Flood Pits as a creature here. He
Yep.
could go for the Meringue River region now. He did draw the land for that. Could bounce both of these creatures, but the Emberheart Challenger does have haste, so maybe Anthony just says 6 is good enough. A 6/7 is good enough, and just get both creatures off the board.
All right, let's restart this. Let's restart things, but I start things at 4 with a 6/7 on the battlefield, and
Yeah.
PS you're at 13. All right,
Ooh.
it's definitely time to cash it. And this game is no longer about omniscience.
Yeah,
We are a long way away from that. New card. That's a mountain.
and that's a Manifold Mouse, I believe. So Ken has access to Emberheart Challenger, has Rockface Village to target it, or has access to Manifold Mouse. So if he goes Emberheart Challenger and goes for Manifold Mouse with the making both,
Yeah.
right? If you kick it.
Oh, a little offspring?
The offspring.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Can give double strike and trample to the Emberheart Challenger.
Yeah, okay. You know what, Monty? You're going to go far, kid.
Am I?
Yeah,
All right.
because I'm kind of liking what you're lining up right now.
The big issue, of course, with that is you're not aggressively pushing anything through the Smurring River region as a 6-7 right now. And if you just play these both out and then you get temporary lockdown, that's bad.
Why?
Hold on.
That's bad.
Let
That's
me run
horrible.
the numbers
Yeah,
a bit.
it's not bad, it's horrible.
You've dealt no damage and you've lost all of your threats.
Ugh.
I think that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah.
And spots like this is what makes competitive Magic so great, because Ken is 4 points of damage away. 4 from clinching into the top 8. And is there a way for him to get through these last 4 points of damage? The one thing about this red deck is it doesn't deal a lot of actual direct damage. Your lightning bolts, your incinerates, your lightning strikes of the world. You're not going to find them here. So much of it comes through the red zone. Now, of course, there is burst lightning.
How much damage did that do?
That deals 4. That deals 4 with kicker.
All right. Ken going to start things off with the Emberheart Challenger. Could just use Rockface Village to see what the top card is if he wants. But I mean,
Not yet. All right, Manifold Mouse. All right, trigger this. Okay.
another Soul Guide
Yep,
Lantern.
again-
Okay.
Again, this game is not close to about Omniscience coming out of the graveyard anymore. Okay, so now there's the Soul Guide Lantern. This is also, as you mentioned, this is brutal because you're trying to walk this tightrope around temporary lockdown. Do you even try to play around temporary lockdown anymore? I don't think so. I think this question's getting answered very quickly for us, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I don't know if Ken is just running out of Magebane Lizard, but doing so means that if Anthony has another temporary lockdown, that would put him at 3.
Draw. Didn't get a great look.
I think that's Cavern of Souls.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right, actually. Okay.
That's not offering much help.
Now, of course, this 6/7 that's on the battlefield, this flyer, I'm not convinced it wants to attack. I mean, it wants to attack, but is it actually gonna attack? I would be hard pressed to see that happening.
I don't think we're going to see that. Avatar means you can go for
Avatar.
an impending
Whatever the overlord.
Overlord of the Flood Pits.
Okay, draw 2. 1, 2.
So partition is not temporary lockdown.
That's not the right. That's not the right white card.
Sure ain't.
Oh boy. Discard that. Hendikar wastes. Impending down, past the turn. Big draw. Big draw. Didn't get a great look. But Ken is already moving those lands around.
Rockface Village.
Yep.
Think that was a land?
I think so. Let's take a look at what this card is. Okay, well, that is a land. That's the Soulstone Sanctuary. Okay, okay.
That's a good land.
That is a good land.
That land has text.
Okay, okay. You're at 4. I am.
That's the number.
That is correct. Soul Partition we saw in game 1. Here's the trigger. Here's the attacks.
Says double strike on the Manifold Mouse.
Yes.
Anthony has access to that soul partition, so we'll be able to clear some things off here. I would guess that we're going to see the Emberheart Challenger be the one blocked. The Magebane Lizard will be the one getting through. And it's awkward to soul partition the Manifold Mouse. You don't want that to get offspring coming back down. But you also don't want to soul partition the Emberheart Challenger, considering it has haste and is the thing giving Ken access to more cards. I think you have to soul partition the Manifold Mouse.
Thinking. Okay.
I think Anthony is committed to going to 2 here.
Yep. Remember your triggers. Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
You better remember that main.
Better remember the trigger.
Yep. Okay.
So 2 damage total dealt to Anthony. That is a mountain in hand. Okay. Survival.
What's next for Ken? Anthony's hand right now in the face of Mage Bane Lizard is horrible.
Bad.
It's just spells.
Real bad.
No more lies. Change the equation. Roiling Dragonstorm. Mage Bane Lizard is having a huge impact on this game. Ken is reaching.
Yeah, I think he's just considering whether he's recasting the Manifold Mouse immediately.
The answer is no. Okay, back to Anthony Lee. Draw.
That's a dispersal.
Ugh.
That might allow Anthony to live if Ken bricks off.
Okay. Down to, well, almost down.
Yeah, I think
Goes
this
the
is just
Overlord.
pass,
Yeah.
tick down. Ken will turn the
Nudge.
Sanctuary into a creature. Could have seen Ken get really aggressive with it if he wants.
Ken bricked off again. Ugh. Okay. Let's see what this looks like. He's reaching already. Is this this Manifold Mouse? Okay, 3 mana.
Oh.
Respond.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay. Oh boy. Okay, so that's dispersal. Take 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so get that out of here. Okay. Next is change the equation. Get that out of here. Okay. I'm at 1. Whew.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's going to do it. No more spells allowed. Okay. Ken Yukuhiro wins and is into our top 8. Mono Red is going to get the job done. There's a little fist bump. There we go. There's the emotion that we love to see. Mage Bane Lizard, how annoying and how good.
That card has just been excellent out of Ken's deck. We've seen it come in clutch multiple times now, and it is the reason a lot of people expected more mono red this weekend. Is it gives you so much game against the Is It Prowess decks. I think especially if you're in the seat of Ian Robb right now, you see the next player that makes it into the top 8 is Ken Yukuhiro bringing Mage Bane Lizard. You're like, all right, top 8 just got a little tougher for me.
Maybe just a smidge.
Just a tad.
So we got Is It Prowess. We got mono red. We're working our way towards some other players and some other decks. Let's watch some more Magic, shall we? Kassis. I like some roots. I also like Shota Yasooka as well, playing Is It Prowess. Top finish is 5 on the left, 12. That's a lot of those for Shota on the right. We have 2 very different decks here. Is It Prowess, 40% of the metagame. We knew that coming in. Golgari Roots, significantly less than that. But either Kassis felt coming into this tournament that I have a deck that I'm very confident in is good against Is It Prowess. Is it true? Well, this is a small snapshot of that as we're going to watch this game and match right now.
Yeah, I believe he went 5-0 and constructed it yesterday.
No big
with
deal.
Roots, if I'm not mistaken. Started today off 7-1, but didn't have the best draft. Was 8-4 here coming into the previous round. Picked up a win to 9-4. So Construct is still going really well, but the early draft was not great for Ely.
And now you see these players. Let's check in on where we're at in the match. And you see Ely Kassis is up a game over Is It Prowess. Again, he felt very strong that he had a good matchup here. This is a deck that we did not expect to see coming into the weekend. Again, we expected so much red, be it mono or Is It Prowess. And we, of course, expected some omniscience as well. But Kassis has found a strategy, at least this weekend, that works for him against Is It Prowess, and we're going to see if he can overcome the build that Shota has brought to the battlefield. Storm Chaser's talent we're used to. The Slick Shot show-off? Not so much.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the cards that has fallen somewhat out of favor, but it does give this deck a bit more explosiveness. One of the concerns that a lot of players had from this Prowess build was how weak you are to temporary lockdown. Now, Slick Shot Show Off, yes, does get hit by the lockdown, but against the lockdown deck, you can plot it and then have these explosive haste turns where you kill your opponent before they're really able to respond.
Now, Ely, I think, is thinking on if he may want to block or not. We will find out in just a moment. But I actually think that's what might be under consideration because I think some of us at home might be thinking, oh, this is frozen. But I see Shota. I see some movement. Okay, there we go. We're not frozen. We're just thinking. So we're going to head back over to Ely Kassis now, who is going to fall down to 18 and is clearly under some early duress. He'll play a forest. What comes up next?
He needs a roots, and he has a roots.
Well, speak of the devil. Oh, well, we are so back, baby. Yes. Dragon Sniper, let's go. Oh, Corey Steelcutter. Okay. Well, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's an op to bring a monk in. But this Dragon Sniper, look, it's ready. It's ready to trade with something. What will it get the opportunity to trade with?
Not the slick shot show off.
Yep, see, because the Dragon Sniper does have reach in addition to other things. But Ely, whenever we've watched him play this deck, he trades immediately with the Dragon Sniper.
Yeah.
Right? Don't want that to die to removal spell. Get your exchange when you can. So, going to trade with that Otter token. The Monk token's going to come across for a little bit of damage. And Ely's follow-up.
Oh,
yeah.
there it is.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
My favorite thing about how Ely plays this deck is he treats his key cards as like the super friends.
Yes.
Like they all just assemble in one pile.
Yep.
Just checking the list off. It's like, all right, I got a Roots. Tyvar has joined the pile. Once you add an Overlord, that joins the pile. Everything just sits in one pile of just amazing cards that all work together to bury you in creatures and card advantage and just all the good things. Having this combo of Tyvar into the Roots that was already in play. Now minusing means that he has the ability to just get back this Dragon Sniper or the Haywire Might that he milled. Either is pretty good here. The Might is an answer to the Core Steel Cutter.
Yeah.
The Dragon Sniper is a blocker for the Slick Shot show off. He's also going to make a token with the Insidious Roots, but now we see the beauty of this deck, which is that token can activate its mana ability as if it had haste.
I got 2 words for you. Pew, pew. Dragon Snipers are here. They're ready to block.
Okay, but have you met Vivi?
I'm familiar with Vivi's work.
Okay.
It's been quite impressive this weekend.
Pretty good
And
resume.
I think Shota is also a fan. So Vivi's in the battlefield. There will be a ping. There will be another monk. And there'll be a sleight of hand that will be resolving here in just a moment. And this is before Vivi goes active. So take a look at 2 cards. Looks like Into the Flood Maw was one of them. So that's done resolving. What's next here for Shota? The Hall of Famer. The resume is immaculate.
How many top finishes was that?
Boy, I think
12?
double digits.
12? Yeah.
All right, another Vivi. Okay, so another sleight of hand here. Vivi now to 2 counters, has dealt a little bit of damage. And Dragon Sniper, I repeat, can Dragon Sniper stabilize the battlefield?
Yeah, Shota has already used Vivi's mana ability for the turn,
That
has
is
played
correct.
his land for the turn. So in terms of development, Shota's done everything that he can do. Now it's all a matter of how much are you attacking into these Dragon Snipers.
Yeah, how much and where are you attacking as well?
Tyvar needs to go. That is, I think, the easy answer. Is Tyvar needs to go.
It's a scary one to let hang around. That much is for sure. So there are the blocks. And it looks like Tyvar is going to be staying on the battlefield, perhaps. Now, does Ely Kassis have an answer to Vivi? That's kind of the missing piece to the puzzle for his draw right now. You see that Ely is down to 11. And Shota has had a beautiful start with Sleight of Hands and Vivi's and Corey Steelcutter.
Yeah, Shota just sent the trampling token with the Core Steel Cutter into the Tyvar, saying that if you want to double block this, I will push some damage through because I am still threatening your life total. But this is the cost of that. You've allowed Ely to keep the combo of Roots plus Tyvar. Now he has the Overlord to start going deeper, and this could get out of hand really quickly if Ely's able to find the 4th piece of the Super Friends, which is the Osteomancer.
Yes, yes. The Avengers are almost complete, I suppose. We'll see the Overlord here, of course, mill a handful of cards. There'll be 4 of them. You can return a non-avatar creature card or a Planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. That's going to trigger the Roots alongside Tyvar. That means the plant token will be able to tap for mana and have haste doing so. So...
Was it ever going to be anything else?
No.
It was never going to be anything else.
I think maybe we can change the deck name to Golgari Dragon Sniper. Maybe at some point. We'll have to see.
Golgari Sniper.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get some and have Ely sign them after the tournament's over. Here we go. Oh, there's the Sniper. And here's a Scavenging
Ooh.
Ooze. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Scavenging Ooze alongside the roots is pretty filthy.
Yeah, so now Ely has the ability, each time he exiles a creature from his own graveyard, he'll make another plant.
Yes.
And then that plant can tap for mana.
And also grow all the plants.
Right.
Yeah.
And he can exile another creature from his graveyard
Oh,
to
I-
make,
oh,
to
oh
make a
boy.
plant.
Oh,
yeah, so Shota is going to be facing a large attack next turn.
Yes. So the question now is, what can Shota do? And there's an Into the Floodmaw in hand. But remember, one thing that we've learned about Izzet Prowess over the course of this weekend is that it does not like to be on the back foot, but also it doesn't like when decks go wide against it. It has difficulty beating decks that go wide against it, especially on the ground. So that's what Ely's been trying to do all weekend and has been quite successful doing so in this matchup. We have to presume he was quite successful doing it in game number 1 since he is currently up a game.
Do we know what Shota's second card is?
A
Okay,
Slickshot
there's another
Show-Off.
Slickshot Show-Off. Okay, so Shota could try to force lethal potentially through here by going for the Slickshot Show-Off into the Floodmine, the Dragon Sniper. Unfortunately, Storm Chaser's talent doesn't really do much here because whatever you try to get back, Scavenging Ooze is going to have something to say about.
Well, yeah, he's going to try to get the sleight of hand back, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. Shota already exiling it as if it is done.
So that's an interesting decision there because that's not something that's done at random. Shota basically forcing Ely to do that.
Right, because one thing that can happen now is if Shota just goes for a proactive attack, Ely only has access to 1 mana from the plant. So if Ely goes for this Scavenging Ooze loop, Shota could have potentially interrupted it by with a make a token trigger on the stack into the Floodmine, the Scavenging Ooze, allowing Ely not to put all of this together on the end step.
Yeah, and this feels like a huge win in my eyes, what's taking place right now, because what Ely was able to do is basically have Shota say go.
Yeah.
Right? It was activate Storm Chaser's talent. That's fine. Okay, look what I'm about to do. I'm about to create a boatload of plants. Remember, they have haste because of Tyvar, so they can tap for any mana. And now he's just exiling cards from the graveyard. And you see even our table spotter was like, excuse me, what's happening right now? And it's like, no, believe me, this is all happening.
Trust me.
This is all correct. I've been doing this to people all weekend. They can't believe it either.
Yeah.
So now it's a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1 because all of these creatures get a little bit bigger.
Ah, okay. I see what happened here.
Talk to me.
So Shota had not said go yet. What was happening was Ely played around specifically that into the Floodmaw. So that target on the sleight of hand was still on the stack.
Aha!
And Ely did all of my exiles first, get that out of the way, and then as my final act,
Love it.
I'm going to exile
Love
your
it,
sleight
love
of
it.
hand.
And now the Ooze gets all the counters. There you go.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. It's all being explained right now. Table Spotter wants to make sure that they understand what's happening as well. So I think we are all on the same page. And as all of this dust settles, it's 15 life here for Kassis. And Ely is explaining exactly what I'm doing. So then tap this, then tap this, then tap this. That gives me a green. Then I make a plant token when I remove something. And then all of the dice, of course, all of the plants get counters. And so the way that he has done it, very clear communication. I'm sure Shota understands exactly what's going on. But it's good that our Table Spotter does too.
Yeah.
And what happened shortly after this is Ely untaps and probably attacks for a lot of damage.
Yeah, so Shota has now used Vivi's mana ability to cast the Slickshot Show-Off
Yes.
from hand. The last card we know is Into the Floodmaw.
Yes.
The problem is, Into the Floodmaw's not really dealing with enough here.
No, there is Into the Floodmaw on the Dragon Sniper. Okay, that's out of here. Vivi gets a little bit larger, ping you, bringing Ely down to 14. Slickshot Show-Off's going to come in for a little bit of damage in the air. Maybe try to take care of Tyvar finally, but it feels like it might be too little too late on the Planeswalker, so Ooze is going to eat a little something here. Great. Tyvar down. And Ely's going to untap and probably feel pretty darn good about his positioning right now as he'll take a draw step.
Yeah, I think Ely is... oh, that's another Overlord.
Oh, that's a hard cast Overlord is what that is. There we go.
He considered impending it, and he's like, I have enough mana. I can afford not to.
Ooh, a dragon. That's fun.
How do you feel about creatures that come with removal spells?
Huge fan.
Yeah?
Huge fan.
I love the design of this Roots deck.
When this deck is doing its thing,
Yeah.
It just feels like arguably the most powerful thing in Standard.
Yeah.
It's what it looks like when you see this happening, and this is, I'm pretty confident, the 5th turn of the game for Ely, but at most it's the 6th. My man's cooking.
And you can't use that for mana.
Yep,
Tidewire
that's
is
the
off
only
the
one.
board.
That's the only one that he can't
That's
use
the
for
only
mana.
one you can't use for mana. So start going up the mana, the counter chain.
There we go. Little petty. Take care of that.
Yeah.
Shuffle that dragon back in. That could come back up a little bit later.
All right, so what are we dealing with? We have a 7 and a 6. Those are the ones getting blocked, and just a casual 9 damage getting through.
Well, we'll see exactly how Kassis wants to attack here, but clearly you can tell that he's quite ahead on this battlefield. So here comes the ooze. Here comes a 6 power plant token. And we'll see what else wants to make its way into the red zone, because now those monks from Corey Steelcutter, yeah, they're on chump blocking duty now. So that first one's going to get flattened. Looks like Shota's going to fall down to 13, and, you know, for Yasooka, it's going to have to start with something like a, well, never mind. Never mind. Just never
MVP.
Pew, pew. I was going to say it would have to start with a stock up.
Yeah, we knew that was in hand, of course,
Yeah.
so did Shota,
Yeah.
but... Oh,
Oh,
This
Dragon
root
Sniper,
deck is-
how I love thee. Ely Kassis is going to win this game and match over the Hall of Famer, Shota Yasooka. That Roots deck, he said coming in that he felt very strongly that he had a good matchup against Izzet Prowess, and who are we to doubt him? That was a very dominant display. When it all's going, it's really tough to beat.
he just makes it look easy.
Yes.
He puts the roots into play, it resolves. He puts the Tidewire into play. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then it all happens in one turn.
That deck looks awesome, awesome, awesome. There are more decks to play, excuse me, than just Izzet Prowess in this format. And Ely Kassis' deck, we don't know if he's going to make top 8, but I'll tell you what, that deck is very good, and it might be that good against Izzet Prowess. Break time, everybody! We only got a couple rounds left. We got 2 players into our top 8. We got to figure out who the next 6 are going to be here at Pro Tour Final Fantasy. Maria, Corey, and Ely, well, they'll guide you through that process right after this.